Okay, I'm here today at the Gathering Tree Garden with Will, my friend who came over to Constance Tree Garden with me the other day to help me turn over some beds. The Gathering Tree was established at the same time as Constance. We're a couple of the few remaining community gardens that was established by New Orleans back in 1983. Uh, I wanted to come visit, give Will a little shout out, let you guys see what he's doing because we both practice natural farming in different ways. And he is actually someone who I come to for guidance when I'm like, oh, Will, what should I do? Because, I took on a project and I'm growing with it, not it growing with me. So I'm going to let Will talk about what he's doing here in his garden today and take it away.
All right. I am cleaning out the valleys because I have a raised bed system with valleys in the side that I fill with wood chips and or leaves. I clean those out, work the raised bed, and then take a fork and break the beds
Hey, T.
and layer in some more compost and transplant or direct seed. Um, Sometimes I will pull weeds and leave a nice 8 to 12-inch layer of weed decay on top of a bed I'm not using, which holds in the moisture, attracts bugs and worms, and just continues the natural process uh, for the earth in the bed because I'm kind of going on a low till to no uh, system.
And what is a low till to no till system?
Uh, Low till just means we'll break the first 3 to 6 inches with a little compost or I compost in the valleys, if you will, with leaves and debris. It's now obviously turned into earth. Um,
Wow.
6 months later, dig a little deeper each time, trying to substantiate the valley, making sure to keep the hard bottom of the valley there, so I can have a maximum amount of depth
Uh huh.
for the composting and holding the wood chips, separating the beds, um, and I guess I guess we really don't till as in conventionally tilling up 6 to a foot of earth or flipping the earth like conventional farmers do. So we're just breaking the top and layering on top of it. As much as possible. The only time I guess I would till is if I was building a whole new garden, a whole new surface, unknown earth and or earth that hadn't been broken in a long time.
Hi, you guys. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm here at the Gathering Tree Garden with my friend William Champagne, and he's telling us about how he is now currently building new rows in his garden using low till and no till methods. So basically, what you're saying is that as you go each season, you're just going to move over and till the soil, and you're going to move it from side to side and dig another canal to grow in. Am I
It'll
understanding that
be the same
properly?
canals every time. I'll keep layering dirt as needed in here, and I'll keep cleaning out the channels in order to put in some more wood chips or what have you as the debris that I use decomposes.
And then when it decomposes, it goes into the middle, and
That's
you're
what this is right here.
so you're replenishing the soil with the compost that you created over the low season
Mm-hmm.
in the channels, and then it goes over, and so you're building new soil,
Mm-hmm.
providing new nutrients,
Mm-hmm.
and then you come back and you continue to build up the soil, put new nutrients. It's a constantly evolving cycle where you're creating new soil, building up your medians, creating new
Right.
soil, building up your
We're
medians.
only breaking the earth deep with a pitchfork or something to give it a little bit of oxygen or aeration, but we're not over tilling it, and we're letting a more natural process happen where the nutrients, which is naturally a plant wants the slow release of nutrients naturally rather than fertilizers, obviously. Well, not obviously, but scientifically. And then, as needed, I will bring in compost and or garden soil. Here, I may use some soil from the pathways that were once wood chips that are now dirt, and I'll also bring things up as needed for grade purposes, for flow of the water in the garden and everything. Because we want the water to flow to the channels, and then the
And
beds to
let the
be higher.
roots soak it up from the bottom, thereby creating stronger roots for your plants and also making them more resilient
Hmm.
because they'll be further down in the soil and less vulnerable to heat and colds per se.
Right, and um, the wood chips and the leaves are not a nitrogen stealer. They don't really doesn't make a big difference. They're actually at a pH of neutrality to a certain degree, and uh, I recommend using them to many. Wood chip gardening isn't gardening. I have some real staunch wood chips, some real, real woody ones that don't have a lot of decomposition. But a little bit past that, you can garden in those if you wanted to. I don't do a wood chip garden. I'm trying to do more of a permaculture production where I'm trying to have a closed loop of permaculture, but I'm also using uniform raised bed to uh, to plant and produce it.
So you're doing a hybrid then, kind of.
Kind of, yeah, yeah. I don't collect water, and I don't have any animals yet. So and I don't really have any long-term permaculture swales or food forest type of production going on. It's a lot of it is me planting and working with what comes up in the seed bank.
So then my question is, because today what I'm doing at home is I'm updating my knowledge about indigenous microorganisms and beneficial microorganisms in order to help decompose materials and provide nutrients for the soil. Do you use any beneficial microorganisms? Have you ever dabbled in making your own indigenous microorganisms?
Other than what I use in my compost pile and how I layer things here, I don't um I don't really go out and find anything. I have mycot in the soil.
Uh-huh.
I have worms and beneficial bugs and everything, but I don't particularly. I try to add potash and just organic matter to and making sure that it's decomposing properly is what I do currently. I haven't got into any heavy production. My biggest problem really is insects, especially in the city, because they tend to want to a green space like that. The beneficial and the non-beneficial insects tend to want to show up here because of the amount of food and the
Exactly.
cycle going on. So I haven't dabbled a lot in to dabble more in that beneficial plants, interplanting, and beneficial insects. But as far as beneficial microorganisms, I know there's a big market, but I haven't really got into that.
Well, a good thing is though is that you're using wood chips, and the wood chips provide a nutritious environment for microbial mycelial growth, and so
Hmm.
you have already a rich environment for the decomposition to proceed.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that would change with the beneficial microorganisms is that it's like having your decomposition going on at a rate that makes it seem like they're on steroids because you're feeding them the food and giving them more energy so that you're maximizing their output. So not only do they grow, but also the nutrients that they provide in the soil that you're then creating, it's stronger and more potent. Alternatively, You can use indigenous microorganisms to make your own natural pesticides by simply adding fermented rice water, taking that and adding garlic and chili peppers and letting that sit for a week to ferment. And then you have a natural pesticide that would definitely keep the bugs away,
Done some of that.
especially since you have those ghost chili peppers.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that with that and seeped peppermint, um, and things like that. Uh, I'll have to say, with that type of insecticide, you have to be pretty vigilant with it and spray it.
Right.
Especially if you're looking for the outcome of industrial, conventional things.
Yeah, I've found that usually when I'm using my natural pesticides, I have to spray at least every 3 days, if not every other day, to see the results that I want to see.
My biggest problem here is sometimes leaf chewers and then borers, like with yellow squash and the butternut. Although butternut squash is pretty tough, so you can get borers and still have a viable piece of squash, and it won't take a vine or a plant out. I found with the yellow squash, it's softer. It's not as a vigorous, tough grower. It's a bush plant, and they'll bore right into the center of the plant, and it'll be over. It won't be over fruit. So I use conventional organic things, which are bacteria brought into the lab and obviously made and then put into a emulsification, so you can spray them onto things such as BT and Spinosato. Sometimes unless I'm really doing production, I will normally not be very vigilant about it and maybe use it loosely once a month. If I try to do production, I will use it as instructed. So it is the South is very buggy, good and bad. Um, the soil I haven't had a lot of problems with uh, as far as getting the richness. This garden was a garden before it went into Parkways Partners, possibly since the late '50s. So this soil, if you can just go way down into it.
So, you guys, those of you who are just joining us, I'm at the Gathering Tree with Will Champagne. He's my friend who visited me at the garden the other day. And what he's talking about now is how he grows his own soil. He's currently digging out the channels where he had green matter and wood chips decomposing, and he created this nutritious soil himself. And as you can see, it's very moist and it looks a lot better than the things that you can get at Walmart, and definitely great because you don't have to pay money for it. It was just something that took a little bit of effort and about 6 months to create.
Yeah.
He, like myself, we're natural farmers and we practice a method of gardening that does not introduce chemicals into the garden. And more importantly, we're closer to zero waste gardening, which means that we reuse everything that comes into the garden in order to continuously sustain it. That includes us taking the weeds and composting them, or as Will is doing right here and building his channels, putting them in the channels with wood chips and letting them decompose in order to create new organic matter. This is a way that you can help build soil in some places where soil erosion is a problem, like New Orleans. This is a great way to make sure that your land mass is strong and sturdy, but also it's a way to make sure that you continuously provide the nutrients that your garden and your plants would need in order to grow and sustain yourself.
Yep. And it is takes a little time, but once you get a program going, especially if you get a hold of wood chips and you figure if I didn't have all these weeds, I took this summer off. I have a bunch of weeds. I chose not to use any plastic. Many years, people have been covering this in plastic. I've been here for a couple. Uh, if I didn't have the weeds, I would probably grow oat grass, other grasses that give you plenty of seeds to keep replenishing, and use and grow my own straw hay and use it as green manure and or after it dries out as carbs. So it is about just getting a program going with the right stuff. And this was very very it was a great garden when I got in here, and I was lucky. But I have been working, getting yards of coffee, bags of leaves, and you would be surprised once you get the microbial going in your garden how fast it will just start to
Grow.
turn into dirt that much faster.
It shoots up and it continuously provides for itself. The one thing that people always tell me when they come to the garden, they're like, oh my God, there's so much stuff growing here. I'm like, yeah, did you know it was contaminated not even 5 years ago? And using beneficial microorganisms and just nurturing the soil, we were able to bounce back in a record amount of time in ways that people in the US had no idea were possible.
Yeah, and the mycology, the fungus is a big player in water exchange and getting rid of lead and so forth. That mycology, I believe it's the oyster mushroom mycology, can eat
Yes.
plastic and oil pollution and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I put down some oyster mushroom spores in my community garden earlier this spring. It was kind of late, but I'm hoping that I'll soon start seeing some mushrooms pop up in my garden.
Yes, and that's good. Make sure you can identify your mushrooms before eating them.
Definitely.
And be careful there. I'm not an expert. I've only dibbled and dabbled. Yeah, I recommend having all the bugs. You need the beneficial as well as the non-beneficial to continue the process. So trying to find a balance. And yeah, in building the soil this way, although is time consuming, I don't use any mechanized stuff. I used to use a small tiller, and I may use one if I can get it running, but I don't use it the way someone would use a tiller because too much aeration is killing the process. And as you notice,
yes, air is not good for microbes.
I have weeds, and it looks like I let things mix in. And if you look in here, you'll start finding leaves that are in their decomposition and their straw. I'm lazy about it because I leave that organic matter mixed in with mostly loam to keep going with the process. I don't want completely clean earth that's just compost done, or it's always going, but done all the way to the point that there's no raw organic material decomposing also at all times off to the side, over the top, such as mulching and knowing where you mulched, so that you may want to leave mulch to decompose on a bed and then clear one off and let it decompose again, because you just keep layering in these processes, and eventually you will get to the point that you're just working the 3 to 6 inches at most of the time, and that seems to be permaculture market gardening is what I guess the Canadians and the Europeans are calling it.
Well, thank you guys for coming out. My phone is telling me that we have to go. I do want to thank you for stopping by and taking the time to listen to Will and I talk about natural farming. I hope you have a great day, and I will be shooting another video from Constant Street Garden a little bit later on, and we'll catch up later. Bye.
Bye.